Okay, the second red box is the rest of chapter 1. So the first 18 verses take us to eternity past, and the Gospels actually start before time. And then, by the way, all those yellow bands or brown or gold or whatever color that is, mustard, LXO means Life of Christ beginning event. That's the incarnation. The birth of Christ is LX1. That's event 9. The baptism of Christ is the second of the 7 key events of Christ's life. That happens, right there. And then Satan's temptation. Wow. And then in the box is all of the first chapter right there, the rest of it. And then look what happens in the second chapter. We start the 7 signs that make up the framework of this book. Well, let's do the geography, because many of us read all this and we read names, and if we're comfortable, well-adjusted Americans, when we come across something we either can't pronounce or don't know, we just keep going, because the whole mantra of America is progress. I mean, reading just go as far as you can, right? And I tell students, stop. Anything you don't know, look it up. Look in the footnotes of your study Bible. Find it on a map. So here's chapter 1. Look, have you ever seen chapter 1 of John on the map? Nazareth, that's where Jesus lived. Grew up, he leaves there in John 1:28, and he gets baptized, which also is in Matthew 3 and Mark 1. And then he's tempted, but look where the temptation is. It's down by Jericho in the wilderness, and that's in Matthew 4 and Luke 4. And then, though, that John brings up that in John 3, it's in Salem that Jesus is coming to be baptized by John. And then Jesus goes back up to Cana. That's chapter 1:13 to 51, and that's Nathanael's hometown. And his first disciples come, John, Andrew, Peter, Philip, and Nathanael. Wow. And look, all that is in the autumn of 26 AD if you believe in a crucifixion in AD 30, or you can add 3 years to it if you believe in the 33-year crucifixion. But look, that's chapter 1, 13 to 51, and verse 28 up there. That's seeing the Gospel by John on a map. Now, the framework, look in your Bible at John chapter 20, because, remember, you always have to look at the introduction to the book. This is how John describes the Epistle of John. Chapter 20 and verse 30. And truly Jesus did many other, what does it say in your Bible? What? Signs. Whoa. Listen. In the presence of the disciples, which are not written in this book, but these, what? Verse 31. These, what? Signs. See, the whole framework of the Gospel by John is built around 7 successive signs. There's one in chapter 2. Water turned to wine. The healing of the nobleman's son in chapter 4. Curing of the paralytic laying at the pools of Bethesda. The feeding the 5,000, walking on the sea. There's 2 in one chapter. The sight to the blind man and the raising of Lazarus. But you say, what's so important about that? Well, look. See, this framework, John is a big heptadic writer. What is heptad? 7s. Heptadic means he likes groups of 7, especially in Revelation. But look at the 7 sign miracles, what they're saying about our salvation. See, that's what the Gospel of John does. It introduces us to the Word who transforms us. You want to know the most powerful thing for reaching America or whatever you want to reach? Just living out what salvation does. When people see this, they're overwhelmed. They're amazed. Bonnie, who I caught up with on the phone, was flying out of Washington, D.C. and headed north, and she said, I sat next to a promotional speaker from Vanderbilt University who was going to speak at an Ivy League school in the Northeast, and she said he was scared to death of flying. Now here's a professional that speaks at Ivy League schools, but personally he has this deep-seated fear of crashing. And I said, how do you know he was afraid? She said he'd lost both earbuds down his seat. He lost his phone. He got on his hands and knees, was crawling around looking under the seat because he needed his phone and his earbuds. And she said, so I had to get out of my seat and crawl around and help him. And she said, finally, I was nice enough to him. He turned to me and just said, thanks for helping me while you're so nice. And that's all Bonnie needed. What do you think she did? Started sharing why she was not afraid of crashing, okay? And why she was actually looking forward to it because it would take her home. And she just launched into her testimony. And by the way, the place he was speaking, she knew all about. And so it was just amazing. And she said, I got to share the gospel for an hour and a half with this guy. What did she share with him? Well, look. The water into wine, the first sign, salvation is miraculous. Jesus is the Lord of time and creation. Nothing exists apart from him. All of these signs show who Jesus is. To turn water into wine, first is a miracle of time because fermentation takes time. You understand? I mean, there's so many things we could bring out. But why did he make it? To show that salvation is miraculous. That's why in the book of Acts it says, well, these people are filled with new wine. See, people think of wine as bringing joy to the heart. And when you don't have the wine, but you have joy, it's a miracle. And that's what salvation does. Secondly, the nobleman's son, do you remember him? He came and implored Jesus, rode his horse, a day's journey. And Jesus is Lord of space, and no distance hinders him. And he spoke, and when the nobleman got home, he said, about what time did my son get healed? And when they told him, he knew that it was the instant that Jesus said. What does that tell us? Salvation is by faith. Salvation is by grace. The paralytic couldn't move. He wasn't looking for Jesus. And so salvation is Jesus coming and looking for us. Remember, he's the one that's looking for us. Started in Genesis. Who was looking for who? Adam and Eve were hiding. God comes walking through the garden in the cool of the day saying, where are you? Where are you? And that's the story of salvation by grace. Jesus is the Lord our healer. Nothing's impossible. So that's how salvation comes to us. It's miraculous. It's by faith. It's by grace.